Hi, Seduction here. I'm gonna be making this video twice because people are not gonna like what I have to say. I'm going to make the YouTube version first and then the TikTok afterwards. So I have a lot of spiritual hot takes, and it may be weird for some people, but I think that they need to be spoken on. So without further ado, let's just get into the video. Spiritual psychosis. Now, you're probably looking at your camera like your device like this. And you're like, what is she about to say? Because I'm either going to click off or, continue watching based on what she says, right? But I implore you to have an open mind. Spirituality is about having an open mind, right? It is about taking things that already, number one, we cannot physically see with the naked eye, and things that are seen with the mind's eye. And hold up, already only a select few who can view these things inside of their field of vision. And I think that that they need to be discussed. So many cuts, but please, I implore you to have an open mind. I am on the fence about spiritual psychosis because on one half, you cannot be the dictator of someone else's spiritual experience, especially if you are only viewing things from like one perspective or you have a closed practice. What's possible for you may not be the same for someone else, or what's not possible for you may very well be possible for someone else. You have to understand that there is a spiritual hierarchy that exists. And that's not saying that one God is better than the other or anything like that, but there is levels to this shit. You will be surprised. There's levels to this shit. Not everyone is on the same level. It's on the same context that someone can be on par with someone else, and they may be in a different field, but they have similar spiritual standing. It's that same concept, right? So to claim that someone has spiritual psychosis because it may not be possible for you is very biased. And then on the other half, I'm all like, well, also, there are some things that just seem too outlandish to be true, but at the end of the day, it still applies. I can't say that someone has spiritual psychosis if that's not the experience that I'm living. It may very well be that, because there are many, absolutely ridiculous stories within the mythos, but that's those people's reality. So who are we to deny that? Good one. I was sitting here thinking about what else I wanted to talk about, but then it came back to me because that's the reason why I made this video. There is an entitlement with people who get I feel like there's this really weird unspoken thing that's not talked about. It's about people who are initiated by the living versus people who are initiated by the dead, and let me explain. Sometimes you will have people who are not initiated into a practice by the living, but these are initiations that are conducted by the dead, are done by the dead, and the person who is getting initiated is being led or mounted by spirit while this process is happening. Now, I feel like it's happened before, because I've seen people go through that. I have. And someone who was living, or the person who was getting initiated, conducted that. But the whole process, mind you, is being led by an elder or an ancestor who has already passed on. This, to me, is a very valid way of being initiated into a practice. It is something that is given to you by spirit and something that is dictated by spirit. There are many people who are priestesses and priests who have been led by the dead and by these spirits who are initiated into these practices, and they are still very valid and just just as valid of resources and position as someone who was initiated by the living but had to pay, an absurd amount of money, versus being initiated by spirit, your own ancestors who have done this for their entire lifetimes, more than likely. And I feel like it's a very valid way of moving into a practice where some people are all like, well, it's either psychosis or it's not a valid way. Like, you have to have the actual proof. And I'm all like, well, if they can get the job done, it's valid, it's accurate, where's the problem? Many things that need to be discussed inside of the spiritual community when it comes to these things. And a lot of them, they aren't fully talked about. But I want to bridge that gap. I want to, open these perspectives, these ways of thinking, because that kind of thinking could do us in. Talk about more in another video. I don't know if they caught up on that, so I'll say that again. I'll talk about more in another video. But thank you so very much for listening, and I appreciate you all. I don't know an outro, so I'll see you guys later.